Well, welcome everyone to Traveling Through History. This is our channel dedicated to taking you through historical events, the famous people that shaped our history, and all the different historical aspects that we like to study and to highlight. And today we're going to be looking at one of the most famous people in U.S. history, of course, and that's our original founding father, our first president, and really considered the father of our country, George Washington. And so we're going to take a look at him. We're going to take a look at some of his bio. We're going to do a short video, and we'll talk about it on the other side of the short video. And then we're also going to take you through 25 little known facts, and I love those. I really enjoy looking at famous historical figures from different angles that maybe you don't hear when you study that individual in school. So we'll be looking at those three things as part of this episode. We have a lot more content coming up with other founding father analyses. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel, you like this video, and if you really like the content, put something in the comments down below on future founding fathers, future historical figures you'd like us to review and to analyze. So really look forward to talking to you about this. Let's start with George Washington, of course, the most famous American. He was born in Pope's Creek, which obviously is a very important place in Southern Virginia for my family, being Thomas Pope. Our family farm was actually adjacent to the Washington farm. So all of the plantation owners and farmers and settlers in that area all kind of knew each other and interacted. So he was born in that southern part of Virginia. There wasn't a lot known about his early life. A lot of it is guesswork at this point, what he was like as a boy. Of course, you had the famous fable about the cutting down of the cherry tree. You had him following his father around, who was both a well-educated British aristocrat, plantation owner, and also farmer. So he had both an educated side and a farmer side. So he taught the young George everything about how to live off the land, how to grow your own crops, how to make leather, make things that you needed around the house or things that you needed to survive. But he also taught him how to read and how to consider being educated a very important aspect. So young Washington grew up, and then at 21 years old, he ended up joining the military forces of the colonial British Army. At that time, the colonists were still Brits, and at that time, they were facing a threat from the French and from the American Indians, both in the West and in Canada. And so he joined that at 21, became a very young commander at the time. Actually, he took his first command at 21 and led his first battle. His first battle was actually a loss. So, but he learned a lot through that period, got a lot of experience, which later would help him when he became a commander in the Continental Army. After that, he went back to Mount Vernon for a while and continued to build his profile in terms of his political life and his military life. He also got his farm going in most aspects, and it was a self-contained and self-thriving farm. He started in public office for the first time in 1749 as a surveyor for Culpeper County, Virginia, and that was the first time he actually served the public in a public role. Worked his way up from there, continuing to build his resume and work as a surveyor at the same time. And later on, entered back into the military when the Continental Congress was formed and when the Declaration of Independence occurred. He was considered the most experienced and had the most stature of all the military leaders. So became our country's first commander-in-chief as assigned by the Continental Congress. So let's take a quick look at this little bit of video, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
George Washington not only has the distinction of being America's first president, he is also the first leader in history to achieve victory in a revolution against a colonial empire. Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army during the American Revolution, his strategy as a general won the Americans many victories over the Redcoats, such as the operations that took place in Trenton, New Jersey in December of 1776 and January of 1777. Washington and his men famously crossed the icy Delaware River 3 times. Once into Trenton to defeat the British under Johann Rall, then back to Pennsylvania, carrying prisoners and supplies captured during the surprise attack, and finally, once more, under the iciest conditions yet, to defeat British reinforcements commanded by Lord Cornwallis at Princeton, sending the Redcoats into retreat. His strategy also led the Continental Army to victory at Saratoga in 1777 and Yorktown in 1781, 2 decisive victories for the Americans. While Washington had a preternatural sense of leadership, judge of character in selecting generals, and a strong gift for strategy, the general was a humble man who only served in the Revolution at the insistence of his peers in the Second Continental Congress. Indeed, George Washington only served his country because he felt it was his duty, not for any political or personal betterment. As Washington writes to his wife with the news of his appointment before the Revolution,
"You may believe me when I assure you in the most solemn manner that so far from seeking this appointment, I have used every endeavor in my power to avoid it, not only from my unwillingness to part with you and the family, but from the consciousness of its being a trust too great for my capacity."
the humble but great general seemed a natural choice for the office of president when the newly minted United States Constitution created the office, along with the other 2 branches of government in 1787. He would serve in the office from April 30th, 1789 through March 4th, 1797, choosing not to seek a 3rd term and establishing the 2-term custom. The Electoral College, also established by the famous document, unanimously elected Washington to the presidency, with the next highest vote count making John Adams vice president. Initially declining the $25,000 a year salary voted upon by the first United States Congress, Washington was later convinced to accept the pay to avoid establishing a precedent of only the independently wealthy holding the office. Washington's humility shaped the office, and he took great care to mold any ceremony the presidency might bring into something that would be uniquely American and not something that might resemble the royal courts of Europe. Many in the Congress wanted to address the president as Your Excellency or other fanciful titles, but Washington chose to simply be addressed as Mr. President. Called the father of his country, even in his own lifetime, Washington also managed to serve as president in ways that few, if any others, have. One of only 2 sitting presidents to lead an army on the field of battle, Washington led a militia of 13,000 men to quell an insurrection known as the Whiskey Rebellion, when belligerents protesting a whiskey tax wreaked havoc in Pennsylvania in 1794. Washington was also the only prominent founding father to leave instructions in his will for all of his slaves to be freed. While Washington personally opposed slavery, the president never challenged the issue for fear of dividing the nation that was in its mere infancy. He wrote,
There is not a man living who wishes more sincerely than I do to see a plan adopted for the abolition of slavery.
Retiring to his plantation at Mount Vernon, Virginia, after his presidency, Washington died on Saturday, December 14, 1799, at age 67. His last words were reported to be, "'Tis well."
So as you can see, Washington was really a remarkable man. He was a humble leader. He was pressed into duty. He felt obligated. He felt loyal to the country. He was his humility shone through. He led by example. He was strong. He had the stature of a leader. The men loved fighting for him, loved following him, and the young country needed him. He really had the most battlefield experience and also the most leadership qualities of all the founding fathers at the time. So you can see he, even as president, he could have carried on and been a king or been a forever president until he died, but he decided to step down after 2 terms and set the precedent for the rest of our country's history of peaceful handovers of power and only serving 2 terms and having term limits being an important part of our character as a country. So remarkable man, and really do encourage you to spend some time looking at this incredible life, his early years, his middle-aged years when he was just getting started in the military and as a political figure, and then his later years as president and post-presidency, even some of the contributions he made to the country after he left the office. So really excited about you taking this journey with George Washington, our founding father. So let's take a look at something really fun, and that's going to be 25 little known facts about Washington. Excited to take you through these 25, and we'll see how many of them you actually knew about. All right, so that was our 25 little known facts. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I know that I did. I'm always looking for different angles, interesting facts about our founding fathers and things that maybe we didn't know earlier or hadn't found in other forms of publication. So George Washington, incredible man, incredible person, fascinating. You could probably study him the rest of your life and not learn everything about him, but I do encourage you to take another dive into Washington and see what you find. And thank you guys very much for coming to the broadcast today. And please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and look for our next one that's coming out. We have much more coming. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.